All right, and welcome everyone. Welcome to this month's Instructor Community Call. My name, as always, is Kyle Rosenthal. I'm an account executive and a Microsoft certified trainer, account executive at Skillable, and an MCT, worldwide. So welcome, and we appreciate you joining us. Let's just have a quick look at what we're doing this month. Actually, before we do that, I should know this because we do it this is the same model we do everything every month. So if you do want to jump onto social media, we've got a few attendees today. We've also probably got some folk who are going to be listening to this afterwards. I do realize we're going up against some of the MCT program information as well. But yeah, so appreciate you coming, and make sure you jump onto either Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram, whichever is your social media of choice. And please make sure you tag us with our Skillable or Skillable Labs tag, and make sure you share that you're here, so that other people also know that it exists as well, so we can then maybe see them at some point. All right. So today's agenda, our general sort of welcome, which will also include a bit of a roundup of the new Azure Pass updates, and some information about that. Then we have a chat with Glenn Morris. So Glenn is going to be joining us to talk about AI, and also potentially I'll prompt him about BI. So we're doing the first couple of letters, just about how as MCTs that we might be able to get ready for that, be able to include get ready for training on those sort of topics, because it is one of those sort of new changing landscapes, and I think we're going to get more and more requests to be able to deliver on that as well. We'll then round out with the instructor offers, just to remind you of those if you haven't seen or heard of those, as well as looking ahead for some of the Skillable challenges for our roadmap for the future. And then hopefully we'll have some time just for a little bit of a chat at the end as well, to ask or answer any questions. So the first one of those topics is not Glenn. It's our Azure Passes. So the Azure Pass updates. Now, obviously, this is a big change for us over the for us as MCTs. That's been coming for a while. So we've now had quite a few of the courses that have migrated away from using Azure Passes. So what you'll now see is when you if someone goes to actually book a course or do something through the courseware marketplace, you no longer will be getting course like Azure Passes supplied for these courses. So that's Microsoft have moved away from those. So in response to that, we've been working hard to make sure that we've got in place the replacement courses. So making sure we've got the CloudSlice courses that are available. So we will have. You'll see now in the TMS, you'll see all of the non-Azure Pass versions of these courses. Now I'm going to put him on the spot because I just noticed that Nathan is with us. Nathan, are you listening?
I am.
So Nathan, do you want to comment on any of the changes? And that's the thing that I know, because I know your team has been working hard on this.
Absolutely. So in the screenshot that Kyle has shared on the subscriptions, there's a couple of labs that are also not going to be losing their Azure Passes, and ALHs will be handing out their Azure Passes for the learning partners. I don't know if you're going to get to that later, Kyle.
Yep.
But we will have those Azure Passes in this resource tab as well. So that'll be a seamless integration for you and your learners. You're not going to have to go handing out Azure Passes anymore. They'll just be present in the lab environment to redeem.
Sure. So rather than a subscription sort of description here, or that's something you'd see instead of that a Azure Pass?
Exactly. You'd have the Azure Pass code, and then you would just redeem it as normal.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, and the only other thing I wanted to share, there's 2 other courses on here that recently received major updates from Microsoft, DP100 and DP203. Both of those have had their Azure Pass retired and now are running on Cloud Slice as well.
Okay, great. And of course, the for those that haven't used the Cloud Slice version of the courses, they are going to be coming. Obviously more and more that can be transferred across that. That's going to be the goal. But the benefit of using it is that you don't have to spend that first 30 minutes or so of doing Azure Pass, Azure Pass redemption, that sort of thing. And also then it means you don't have to mess about with items like the user accounts. So people, redeeming Azure Passes against their own, against their corporate environments, versus going against a private Microsoft account. The other thing is that you're no longer limited to that 30 days or that spend limit as such. So therefore, the extended access that we offer with Mock that gives you the 180 days of access is valid usage, right? So therefore, people can actually go and launch the labs again. Obviously, we do put a limit around how many times they can go and launch a particular lab, but there's plenty of space to be able to go and learn and relearn. As a MCT, you probably are when you're doing your demonstrations and that sort of thing, you probably go outside of the what's in the book, or what's in the courseware and that sort of thing, and that's where your MCT credits can be used, as opposed to using obviously necessarily the things that are within the lab. If you're finding that the ring fence that we put around the Cloud Slice environment, if you find that that's restricted for you, or you want to go outside of that, then you can use your own subscription. That's the reason that exists. But the idea is it tries to make it as easy as possible for the students to be able to get going and doing what they're what they need to do within the course. Obviously, if you've got feedback for us on it or anything like that, as always, we certainly do welcome that. So make sure you do let us know if there's things that you think that we can improve or make better and that sort of thing. But you will see this crop up more and more, and as Nathan says, some of them will not just simply have the details that are in here. For some of them, we will actually hand out an Azure Pass. So for those ones, one of the tricks that I would recommend is that you get students to use the browser within the lab environment to be able to redeem that pass. And the reason for that is there's 2 reasons. One is that you're not limited then to any limits that Azure put on the redemption of passes from a particular IP address on a particular day within a time limit. There is a rate limit of that, and we have basically we're on a list that allows us to be able to have multiple requests coming at the same time from our IP. So therefore, you won't be limited in that, which you might risk if you're doing it from your own environment. The other thing is that, particularly if you're using BYOD, that you might have students who are activating, and if they're activating, they might by accident have they be signed in with their own private accounts or their work accounts and that sort of thing. So that's where you might have an issue, which we can get around by getting to do it within the lab environment. So it's going to make life easier if you direct them into there. Even if afterwards you say, hey, once you're done, go ahead and use your local machine, whatever, it'll just make it simpler for that process. If you're getting it through there. That's just and that's something that I've done since day one of using Azure Passes. Whenever we've had virtual machines available, I've always done it within there, because otherwise you have those students who start doing things against their own, their own accounts and that sort of thing. And I did have someone that went and deleted a whole bunch of production stuff, as opposed to as opposed to running a script to delete something within the lab itself. So and how do I get that back? Well, you don't. So, all right. So a bit of feedback from Vivek about CloudSlice. Okay. So the limit on the launch count. Now we have work possibly to get around that. We've updated and increased some of that launch count. If you're finding, Vivek, that there's issues in there, then let us know. If that's still causing you problems. And certainly, I think the regional restrictions that might be something that we need to. I'd be interested to get some feedback offline around that. And anything that, as I said, anything that's causing you issues, things that we can make it easier for you as instructors, but also then as the students as well. This technology is not going away, but obviously we want to work with you to make sure that it's as works as well as possible for you. All right. Okay, so now let's invite in Glenn Morris. Glenn, are you there?
I am here.
Well, welcome, Glenn.
Thank you.
Glenn, do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit? So we've got a bit of who you are.
Yeah, well, my name's Glenn Morris. I am based on the Gold Coast of Australia, so I'm basically an hour away from Kyle. That said, we only ever see each other in other countries. Nevertheless, down here I do a couple of things. I'm an MCT regional lead, primarily work in the data and AI space, and then I've got a couple of contract roles, data scientist with MyPay Now, which is a loans company, and performance analysts with one of the local sports centers and football academies. So varied role, pretty much all in the analytics space, for lack of identifying something directly.
Well, I think that from the years that I've known you, it's very hard to pin down exactly what you do, because you seem to do pretty much most things. So
yeah, I think that it's been interesting, and I think people will find that I think life in the tech world goes through those sort of undulations of being focused on a technology for a while and then generalizing for a while. And that's kind of what's happened to me. I mean, I started life as a maths teacher, for goodness sakes. So, from teaching mathematics to sort of where I am now is very, very different. But I think it's also one of those important undulations that you have to sort of ride or surf in order to find your mojo somewhere.
Yeah. So the reason I asked you to come in today was just to kind of have a chat about sort of like AI and some of like the I guess, how do we get ready for doing AI courses for training and that sort of thing, and how do you kind of see what's the path for MCTs to be able to go down that track? Because as I said in the introduction, I don't this is not something that's going to go away. I think it's something that MCTs in general we're going to see more and more of a demand on.
Yeah.
And I also see that it changes even more regularly than Azure generally. And I know, most of us have been dealing with that over the years, of that, that rapid rate of change. But I think that with AI and machine learning and that sort of thing, that's going to even increase even more. So if you can sort of speak to that, that would be great.
So I actually do consider this quite frequently. One of the things I've done recently is a couple of sort of train the trainers for people or trainers that are planning to sort of train AI. And it's one of the things I'm doing when I head off to South Africa as well in a week or so. one of the first things that I would probably say when we talk about AI is our view of AI needs to be thought through in terms of, if I'm going to decide that I want to work in artificial intelligence, my approach should be initially that I don't treat artificial intelligence like it's a product. I think people sort of see AI and kind of go, okay, I want to do that, as if it's something, as if it's, Microsoft Word, and you just get good at it. It doesn't work that way. AI is really an accumulation of a whole heap of intelligence capabilities. And really you have to then make a decision, sort of look at AI from 32,000 feet and say to yourself, what part of AI do I like, and what part of AI do I think I'm going to be most capable at? One of the things that tends to come along, and we're seeing it right at the moment with ChatGPT, is it's a particular type of artificial intelligence. It falls into the NLP category. It's very, very complex. But once again, because of how it is essentially presented, it seems quite simplistic. This is one of those functions over performance type scenarios. So everyone now is using ChatGPT in a manner that makes you believe that you are sort of in AI or working with AI. And the reality is you're not. You're just working with somebody else's model. You're working with something that somebody else developed, and you're using an interface. One of the things that they've done is that they've made the interface really simple. They've made the concept fairly clear. You ask it a question, it answers the question, and you ask it to do something, it does something. But it's not something that can just be taken and then used in every possibility however you want it to. It's one of those things that, along with a couple of other examples, the other example I always use is autonomous cars. That's what we think of when we think about AI. So now it's autonomous cars and ChatGPT, two of the most complex sets of capabilities that you could imagine. Whereas we really should be looking at AI from the point of view of, if I was if I had a little business and there was something that I needed to make intelligent, if there was something that I needed to do that required intelligence, like let's just say you wanted people to submit a form and that form to be automatically read and categorized and things like that. That is way more typical of the kind of intelligence that companies are trying to implement on a day-to-day basis, right? Sort of moving from I want to be in AI to I'm going to build the next ChatGPT is really like saying today I'm going to build a cardboard aeroplane, and tomorrow I'm off to the moon.
There's a few steps in between, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So the first step is that kind of like, what is it about AI that I like? Is it the computer vision side? Is it the natural language processing side? Is it deep learning? Is it reinforcement learning? What am I interested in? Do I like gaming? Do I like, would I like to improve the way people study? Would I like to improve business processes and things like that? And that should become your sort of initial steps in artificial intelligence. That way you kind of find your mojo. You start thinking about the typical processes in your pathway, which leads you to talking about the typical algorithms in your pathway, learning them, getting good at them, obviously becoming familiar with the structures that support those algorithms, the data, and so on and so forth. And you essentially build a body of knowledge in one little part of the AI ecosystem. And you can expand from there. There's nothing stopping you from going from, computer vision to NLP or vice versa, or going into deep learning. But we always have to start somewhere that we feel most comfortable. because this is complex stuff. This is incredibly complex stuff. It takes a lot of training. It really means that, you have to become familiar with probably languages that if you plan to, use things that aren't just black box, you're probably going to have to become familiar with some computer languages, some capabilities around how these languages are used. You're going to have to become familiar with some mathematics. You're going to have to become familiar with some data structures. So it starts to, involve building some sort of pathway or plan to the particular type of artificial intelligence you want. And so when we run these train the trainers, I always talk to this idea that, there are a couple of things that we, have to make decisions about right at the beginning. What am I going to essentially be good at? You can't be good at everything, right? If you look at some of the courses that Microsoft have out there, they tend to just sort of say, yes, this is AI or this is data science. Run these blocks of code, and you should know what you're doing at the end of it.
Right.
You pretty much have to kind of look at that and say to yourself, well, the block of code that Microsoft is giving us is this little snippet that allows me to take some data, build a little model, and then make a decision around whether somebody gets diabetes or not, or, is a high chance of getting diabetes or not. That is a good example of what AI can do, but it isn't all that AI can do. Right. And as a result, you have to then expand your knowledge from that point onwards and say to yourself, so which part of this AI ecosystem am I interested in, and start sort of working your way towards that.
I think something you said, like the sort of towards the front of that was interesting, and sort of I think it's a shift in how we think about what, like, because you're right, we see things like ChatGPT, autonomous driving, and that sort of thing, and that is, like you were saying, like sort of AI is not a product. But those are the end product, right? So that's the end use product. And I guess what we're doing as trainers, same as we have for everything else, like for infrastructure, for the, like when it's been IT pro courses, dev courses, that sort of thing, we're at that lower level. We're going behind behind that. So similar to the way that, say, for instance, with doing dev courses and that sort of thing, you have to decide which language you want to do. Or with IT Pro, you have to decide whether you're doing now AWS or Azure as a base sort of idea, and then obviously more specialization within there. It's the same sort of thing, isn't it? Like in here, in that we've got this end result product, but those end result products that's the product, and what we're doing is, like, I'm sure at some point in the future there will be courses showing people how to use ChatGPT, or they probably already exist. Like, I'm guessing someone's probably already got courses out there on how to do that. But what we're doing is, as the trainers, as like MCTs, is we're taking that step backwards. We're taking that step back into, okay, well, how do you make the next ChatGPT? And as you said, it's those steps along the way. Like, it's not, well, today that's what we're going to do, and then tomorrow that'll be released, if it was, then I guess we'd all be the billionaires. But so how do you make that approach? Like, once you decide which speciality you want to do, and obviously, I think you hit the nail on the head in that we need to have as with everything, right? It needs to be something you're interested in, you're excited about, like sort of otherwise it's not going to hold you for time. And I think particularly within these subjects, that they're complex enough that you have to have an interest, otherwise you will just go kind of walk off.
So. Absolutely. And to be frank with you, you have to understand that like building anything in the AI space is like building a house or building a apartment block or building a corporate office. It's not something that you just one day sit down and start to type away at the keyboard and 3 hours later you have an AI product. Now that it is possible, but I would question the product. But
come on, you just get ChatGPT to build it for you, don't you?
Well, exactly, and it's one of the things I deal with at the moment in terms of in my sort of data science role, where everyone has grabbed ChatGPT and sees it as almost their answer to everything, and then when it essentially, we've got to see it from the point of view of exactly what it is. If I taught you that 1 + 1 was 3, and I continued to teach you that 1 + 1 was 3 through your entire childhood, and then asked you as a teenager what 1 + 1 was, and you said 3, you were just reproducing what you were taught.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we have to look at ChatGPT that way. It's reproducing what it's been taught. And I know it's generative, and I don't want to go into the whole sort of prompts and transformers and all those sort of things. But, at obviously a much lower level, it is going to produce what the model has consumed and been trained on.
Right. Yes.
Over time. Now, it's a massive model, and you can prompt it, you can give it ideas, and it will adapt. But you still have to remember those components. And so when people just generally use it and say, hey, ChatGPT, can you write a poem? It's just writing based on what it knows. It's not, you haven't given it any information, you haven't told it. And that's how a lot of people are using it, and then sort of finding themselves in a kind of place where it's not necessarily producing what they believed was the end product. But I guess one of the things that I'm trying to say is that the process of getting there, and not ChatGPT, just any AI product, is a difficult process. You firstly have to really like data.
Yeah.
At its core, everything is essentially about the data. And I always say to people, pretend that we have this data is the new oil. That's been around for a while. And I always say to people, pretend I gave you 10 barrels of data every week for the next 5 years. Or pretend I gave you 10 barrels of oil rather for the next 5 years. What would you do with it? Now, I'm talking crude oil, so I'm just giving you dirty oil, essentially.
Yeah.
And people would normally kind of go, okay, I'd resell it. I would, refine it and all that kind of stuff. Data is very much the same. You can collect as much as you like, but we have to then think about exactly what we're going to do with it. And just like oil, it's not worth a lot until it's gone through the whole refinery process.
Right. Yeah.
And that is usually the most complicated part of the whole data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence world, is getting yourself to a point where you have good data. The other thing that we've got to get away from is like enough with this data tsunami type thing, right? Invariably, organizations will go, oh, we're dealing with massive amounts of data within the organization. We have to kind of consider how we use our data. You can collect as much data as you like and only use 2 columns. And as a result of that, we've got to get away from this, we're just collecting data for the sake of collecting data, and we have to start really thinking about data. So when you start considering your AI product, what is it you're trying to build, and what is essentially going to be the underlying structure that allows you to build that product? And then you need to sort of start working right at that platform, like putting up your building. The foundation becomes the most important part, and the foundation is inevitably data. Once we get through the data part, I always start to have the sort of structure versus function, conversation, because when we sort of develop based on function, it's kind of seen as transformative, but you also have to understand that, because of people's skill sets, because of how varied your product is likely to be, or the requirement is likely to be, we have to start looking at the paradigm of function versus structure, right?
Right.
And how you can best develop performance, right, is probably the most important part. So what is your product going to do? So what is the ultimate goal? And how is it going to perform? And importantly, given the way we are essentially transitioning through things, how is it going to adapt? Because, things like ChatGPT are the perfect example. Are we still going to be using it with the vigor we currently have 6 months from now? Right. Is it something that's just, Microsoft's made it available as part of their OpenAI suite? Is it still going to be something that people are like waking up in the morning going, let's get it, let's plug it into all our products, let's have it right to our, now Microsoft are doing a very good job of using their own technology by plugging it into Dynamics 365, Power Platform, and that kind of thing. So you can kind of see it becoming part, and this is where AI becomes the product. Right. So it becomes part of a whole heap of products, so that we no longer use it the way we've been using it for the past couple of months.
Yeah.
And so you have to approach it as somebody who wants to teach it, and as somebody who wants to build products, you have to sort of approach it in much the same way. What happens once we get beyond that initial product? So how does it grow? Because that's really the intelligent part, is how do I continue to nurture intelligence in my products?
I guess that's the challenge that we're going to have as MCTs, right? Is that foundation will actually shift as that happens. Like as you have more for more of a there's probably a better term for it, but I could see a compression of the things that are being built now becoming then the tools that then form part of the foundation. So basically, rather than just being concrete, that we've gone concrete, and now we need steel in the foundation as well for the for some forms. But that steel, like that previously, was something that was done separately, whereas now it's delivered as that initial base layer of the foundation. So I think that's part of the challenge that we're going to have, right? Is that as technology, as that technology moves forward and new and emerging versions of it, is staying ahead of that, like to make sure that we keep relevant. Now, I think there's two challenges from there that I would see. One is that as trainers, we obviously need to keep ahead of that, and that's where I think that deeper interest would help, right? If going, okay, right, well, this is what's coming next. The second part of it would be that it then means that courseware also will need to move far more rapidly than what it might have done in the past. So that's, I think, also going to be a bit of a challenge for us as well.
Well, the trick here, though, and I'm sorry to interrupt, is that it's going to be a challenge for us, but as trainers, it's also an immense opportunity.
Right?
Because this gives us the ability to start getting ahead of the game. Like I was looking at that article that Corey wrote. So in this case, we're talking about Corey Hines, the chairman of Skillable, about how AI is going to affect learning, how AI will affect labs, and so on and so forth. And so this goes directly to that idea that if we as MCTs start to sort of look at learning and think to ourselves, okay, is there anything that I can do that adds intelligence to learning? Is there anything that I can do from a evaluation process that allows us to be intelligent around the way we evaluate students? Is there anything that I can do that is this great example of intelligence in the classroom and things like that? So there's so many amazing opportunities to build on top of what is currently in play, and starting to sort of see, not necessarily into the future, but starting to see just that little bit ahead around training, how we can improve it, how we can use the intelligence, how we can plug it in, how we can essentially use some of the products that are out there that allows us to just better do anything. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, at the beginning of the school term, I went to my daughter's school and sort of gave them a little bit of a chat about ChatGPT, because it very quickly in that first week or so became apparent, they started sending emails home and stuff, that it was going to be a problem.
Right. Yeah.
From a teacher's perspective, they immediately started to see ChatGPT as a threat. Right. Kids are all going to be using it to write their essays and come up with ideas and things like that. And so we just very quickly went there and sort of put it to bed that, it again, that same explanation, it's based on what it's learned and, things like that. And then also what happened in that same week is, I think it's called Zero GPT was published.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So that's another product, ultimately an intelligent product that goes and checks if your work was machine generated or human generated. Right. So again, we sort of go from here's a really cool product that everyone wants to use to here's a product that tells you that, that work that you've just seen or that letter that you've just read was generated by a machine and it wasn't generated by a human. Okay. Yep. So now you kind of get to that point where we very quickly have nullified an amazing
advantage.
We've nullified the advantage, but we've also kind of nullified a pretty amazing product, because we've essentially taken away its power.
Right. Yeah.
And we've made the product is the antithesis of it, the major product. Because now we're just believing that Zero GPT trumps Chat GPT in terms of its ability to identify human versus machine generated.
Yeah.
And then again, it might be completely wrong. So we're in this weird kind of loop where now everybody's sitting around and every time they get an email, they run it through Zero GPT to make sure that, you know what I mean? So it becomes a little bit of a game that we find ourselves playing.
Yeah. So just for everyone, I've posted into the chat a link to that article that Glenn referred to, which is the link for the AI skills impact of AI on skills validation that Corey released. It was very coincidental with this timing for what we're doing here. It was like it was not intended, but it was very coincidental. Glenn, we could chat for hours about this, and I'd actually like to have you come back another time to have a chat about the Power BI side of things as well. So we might see if I can schedule you for another little, like either not necessarily next month, but a couple of months' time, we'll come and have that chat again. And I'd actually really like to sit down and maybe do this more of extended, just on this particular topic. But I'm conscious of the fact that we are getting down to our end time. So thank you very much, Glenn. I really appreciate your time. And thank you for some really good insights in there. So
this is one of those sort of conversations, and AI and intelligence generally is one of those conversations. I'm in digital intelligence. Or one of those conversations that could go on for days. But I think, for the group that is here today, in terms of going forward and learning AI or teaching AI, it's like identify go through the courses, go through the labs on Skillable, find that sort of stream that you're interested in and start to sort of plug away at that. Try not to just do everything, because nobody does in the AI space. Nobody does everything. So be focused and find your niche and then expand from there. Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Really appreciate it.
Cool.
All right. Just in the last couple of minutes, then, just to make sure that we cover off everything. Just a reminder for the instructor offers and for the offers of what we have. So we do have free access for you to be able to prep for classes, and then obviously things like Glenn suggested. Hey, try this out. See what what streams that you might be interested in, or things you want to be able to expand your knowledge on. Leverage off obviously our hands-on environments for that, and that goes through the mock lab access. As well as that, we also have the MCT and AWS all access passes. So those access passes, they'll actually give you access into all of our challenge labs, which go over and above the content that's contained within the courses and that sort of thing. As Kristen's posted in, that's all through the skillable.com/offers page. In addition to that, you also, as you progress through your engagement with us, you'll also see some more of those instructor recognition badges and that sort of thing that'll come through too. We do have, just as a reminder, that new challenges are coming into that every month. So there is a roadmap that's in there. Normally at this point of time is when I would call on Ashley to jump in and tell us some more about this, but we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'm not going to call on you today, Ashley. But just bear in mind that if you do want to go to those challenge labs, the challenge labs, to see what's coming up, go to skillable.com/challenge-labs-roadmap, and you'll be able to see what new ones are coming through. There are, as we say, there are new ones being added all the time. Rightio. Now we have about a minute left in our time. If there are any questions that you might have or anything that you want, then please, you can come off mute now. We can have a quick chat. Otherwise, while people are getting ready for that, I just wanted to fast forward to our the connection page, which is here in particular for our feedback portal. If you go to feedback.skillable.com. So Vivek, some of the items that you raised, maybe if I can get you to jump into there and give us a little bit more information about what you're after, then we'll run through there. And my equivalent of Vanna White is doing all of the work of pasting in the links. So yeah, if there's any burning questions, we've got a minute or so that we can try and answer those in. Feel free to come off mute and we'll run through. Otherwise, I know that Nathan's been answering some questions as well about some of the Azure Pass questions and that sort of thing. So I'm most appreciative of him joining us for today. But otherwise, thank you very much for your time, for coming and joining us. Really do appreciate it. Thank you, Glenn, for your insights into AI. We really do appreciate that as well. And as I said, we might try and set up something else for a different topic a little bit later on. Really appreciate it. And so Brent, all of this will be wrapped up in the recording that Kristen will send the link out to later on. So we have recorded it all. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And we'll see you next month.